We're diving into a real tragedy today. The crash of Jeju Air Flight 7C2216.
Yeah,
It's, imagine you're coming back from a Christmas holiday, you're in Bangkok,
right.
181 people on board, and then disaster strikes.
Wow.
This is actually South Korea's deadliest plane crash ever.
Really?
So we've got a mix of survivor testimonies and early reports,
Uh,
and we're going to try and piece together what might have happened on that flight.
yeah, it's one of those situations where it just turns terrifying so quickly.
Right.
1 minute you're anticipating going home, and then the next you're in a life or death situation.
Yeah.
And in this case, only 2 of the crew members survived.
Yeah. And it's their accounts that are giving us those first glimpses into what happened.
Right.
One of them, a female flight attendant, mentioned smoke and a possible engine explosion before they crashed.
Oh, wow.
Pretty big red flags there.
Yeah.
What could cause that?
Well, engine failures are complex.
Sure.
A bird strike could do it, but there's also mechanical issues. And that's where this gets interesting, because a passenger who flew on that same plane just 2 days before
What?
reported the engine shutting down multiple times while they were boarding.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
They actually raised this with the flight attendants.
They did, and they were told that it wasn't a problem.
And that flight was delayed an hour or two because of what they said were airport issues.
Wow.
Makes you wonder.
It really does. It raises questions about the maintenance of that aircraft.
Right.
If a passenger is seeing the engine shut down repeatedly, that should be a concern.
Yeah, for sure.
Investigators will be digging into the aircraft's history,
Yeah.
looking for any signs of previous issues or, overlooked repairs.
So we've got a passenger report about potential engine trouble.
Right.
And then this flight has some kind of engine issue too.
Uh-huh.
Let's talk about the bird strike theory.
Okay.
Initial reports seem to point to that as a possible factor.
Yeah.
How often do bird strikes actually cause crashes?
Well, they're actually more common than people think,
Oh,
especially during takeoff and landing.
okay.
Most modern aircraft are designed to withstand them.
Okay.
The real danger is when a bird gets sucked into the engine,
Right.
which can cause serious damage and then lead to failure.
And in this case, air traffic control actually warned the pilot about a potential bird strike.
They did.
And they cleared them for a different landing approach.
Uh,
But then, obviously, things went very wrong.
yeah, we also have this account from a passenger who texted a relative about a bird being stuck in the wing.
Oh, geez.
And their final message was, should I say my last words?
Wow.
So you can really feel the fear in that message.
Absolutely.
Just the uncertainty.
Okay, so we've got potential engine problems. We've
Yeah.
got a bird strike.
Yeah.
And then there are also these reports about the plane's landing gear failing to deploy
Oh, wow.
and that they were attempting a second landing.
Uh-huh.
Witnesses on the ground even reported a loud explosion and sparks coming from the engine right before the crash.
Wow.
What happens when landing gear fails?
I mean, it's a critical situation for any pilot.
Right.
You need to make split-second decisions,
For sure.
especially when you're already dealing with a possible engine problem
Right.
and a bird strike.
Yeah.
Pilots train extensively for these scenarios,
Right.
but the pressure must be immense.
And in this case, the pilot did send out a distress signal
Yeah,
just before the crash.
right.
So they knew they were in trouble.
That signal tells us they were aware of how serious the situation was, and they were trying to get help.
Yeah.
Investigators will be looking into, the timing of the signal,
Right.
what actions they took afterwards,
Right.
and how air traffic control responded.
So we've got all these factors kind of intertwined here.
Right.
Possible pre-existing engine issues,
Mm-hmm.
the bird strike,
Yeah,
and the landing gear failure.
it's a lot to untangle.
How do investigators even begin to sort through all of that?
Well, the next step is to look at the black boxes,
Right.
which are actually orange.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
Yeah, one of them records flight data.
Yeah.
Things like altitude and speed,
Right.
even pilot inputs.
Okay.
So it paints a picture of what happened, technically.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is the cockpit voice recorder,
Yeah.
which captures conversations and any sounds in the cockpit.
Oh, so you get to hear what's going on.
Yeah, it gives you insight into the human element of what happened,
Yeah.
what was going through their minds.
Wow.
It adds a human layer to the investigation.
So we've got the technical side and the human side,
Exactly.
and that gives you a much more complete picture of what happened.
Right, and you can start to piece together the story.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's really fascinating work.
So we'll see what those black boxes reveal.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they find.
We'll continue our deep dive into the Jeju Air Flight 7C2216 crash in the next part of this episode.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, those black boxes are really like two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
The flight data recorder gives you the hard numbers. The technical story, the plane's final moments.
Right.
But the cockpit voice recorder,
Yeah.
that's where you might hear the tension.
Right.
The decisions being made, in real time.
Wow.
Adds that human element to the investigation.
You mentioned that they're still searching for the cockpit voice recorder.
Right.
Why is that harder to find than the flight data recorder?
Well, they're both designed to withstand impact, but they're in different parts of the aircraft.
Okay.
The cockpit voice recorder is usually closer to the front, which, in a crash like this might be more damaged.
Yeah.
Plus it's smaller.
Right.
So it can be harder to spot in the wreckage.
So it's a bit of a waiting game.
Yeah.
While they search for that piece of the puzzle.
Right.
But in the meantime, there's a lot of other evidence they're examining.
Absolutely.
What are some of the key things investigators will be focusing on?
Well, they'll be looking at the aircraft's maintenance records.
Okay.
Really combing through them.
Right.
Looking for any patterns.
Okay. Like what kind of patterns?
Well, did this specific plane have a history of engine issues?
Okay.
Were any repairs delayed or even skipped?
Oh, wow.
Any anomaly could be a clue.
So even something small
Yeah, even something small.
could be important.
Exactly.
And if they find a pattern of neglected maintenance,
Right?
wouldn't that suggest maybe a bigger problem?
Yeah, potentially with the airline's overall safety practices.
Not just this one plane.
Right.
Wow.
They'll be looking at Jeju Air's safety record as a whole.
Okay.
How often do their planes have issues? What's their track record with inspections and maintenance?
So that kind of expands the scope of the investigation.
It does.
Okay. So we've got the plane itself,
Right.
but then there's the human factor.
Absolutely.
What about the pilot's experience?
Yeah, they'll be looking into that.
Okay.
Their training, their total flight hours.
Right.
Their handling emergencies.
Makes sense.
And also things like their medical history.
Okay.
Even
Yep.
their psychological profile.
Right.
Were they rested before the flight?
That's a good question.
Any signs of stress or personal issues that might have affected their performance?
Wow. So they're not just looking at technical skills.
Right. It's about the whole picture.
Yeah.
Were they fit to fly that day?
Mm-hmm.
Were there any outside pressures that could have impacted their decisions?
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
And it's not just the pilot either, right?
No.
Don't they also investigate air traffic control?
Yeah, they look at their communication with the aircraft.
Okay.
Could review all of it.
Wow.
Analyze the instructions,
Yeah.
the warnings, the responses.
Okay.
Was there any miscommunication or confusion?
Uh-huh.
Did air traffic control make any errors?
That could have contributed.
Yeah,
Wow. It seems like such a massive undertaking.
it is a huge investigation.
They're looking at the plane, the pilots, air traffic control, even the weather.
Right.
Is it normal for these investigations to be this big?
When you have a tragedy of this magnitude,
Yeah.
you can't afford to overlook anything. Every detail could be crucial to understanding what went wrong.
Right.
And it's not just about finding a cause.
You're right.
It's about preventing future accidents.
So it's about learning from this and making sure something positive comes out of it.
Exactly.
But these investigations take a long time, right?
They do.
How long do you think it will be before we get some answers?
It's hard to say for sure.
Okay.
They're very complex
Right.
and involve analyzing tons of data.
Yeah.
It could be months or even years.
Years.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a long time to wait.
it is, especially for the families.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
But rushing the investigation won't help anyone.
Right.
We need to be patient and let them do their jobs thoroughly.
Makes sense. I guess while we wait, it's hard not to think about the impact of this crash.
Yeah,
It's the deadliest in South Korea's history.
right.
Do you think this will change how people view flying?
It's hard to say, but these incidents always shake people's confidence.
For sure.
But flying is still statistically very safe.
Yeah.
And the industry has a good track record of learning from its mistakes
Okay.
and making changes to improve safety.
So you think this tragedy could actually lead to positive changes?
I think it has to.
Okay.
Every accident is a chance to look at our systems,
Yeah.
to identify weaknesses and make improvement.
And in this case?
Yeah, with so many lives lost, the pressure for change will be huge.
What kind of changes are we talking about?
Well, one area is pilot training.
Okay.
Are they adequately trained for these complex emergencies?
That's a good point.
Are the simulators realistic enough
Right.
to prepare them for that pressure?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then there's aircraft maintenance.
Uh-huh.
Are airlines cutting corners?
Oh.
Are there enough qualified mechanics?
Okay.
And we might also see changes to regulations.
That's from aviation authorities?
Right.
Okay.
Are the current safety standards good enough?
Right.
Are there any loopholes that need to be closed?
It sounds like a lot of potential for change. But how do we make sure these changes actually happen?
That's where the public comes in.
What do you mean?
Passengers need to demand accountability.
Like airlines.
Yeah, and from aviation authorities.
So we need to speak up.
Yeah, ask tough questions.
Okay.
Push for transparency
Uh-huh.
and hold them responsible for safety.
And it's not just about demanding change.
Right.
It's about supporting the people working to make flying safer.
Absolutely.
Researchers, engineers, pilots, air traffic controllers.
All of them.
They deserve our support.
They do.
And as passengers, we can also do our part.
Yeah, by being informed.
Right.
And responsible travelers.
It's a collective effort.
It is.
Airlines, aviation authorities, and passengers
Working together.
to make sure flying is safe and reliable.
Exactly.
We can't let fear paralyze us.
Right.
We need to learn from this.
Yeah.
Make the necessary changes,
Uh-huh.
and keep striving for the highest level of safety. We'll continue our deep dive into the Jeju Air Flight 7C2216 crash in the next part of this episode. It's really hard not to think about those text messages sent by the passengers
Yeah.
in those final moments.
It's heartbreaking.
It's a real reminder of the human cost of these tragedies.
Yeah. I know the families, their lives are changed forever.
Absolutely. And as we kind of wrap up our deep dive here,
Right.
I think it's important to keep that human element in mind. We've talked about pilot training, aircraft maintenance regulations,
Uh-huh.
but what about the passengers?
Yeah.
How does the industry rebuild trust
Right.
and make people feel safe to fly again?
That's a huge question.
After something like this.
It is. And it's not just about, logic and statistics. It's about emotions.
Yeah.
How people feel that sense of security.
Yeah, because airlines can implement all the safety measures.
Right.
But if people don't feel safe,
Exactly.
it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
So how do they address that fear?
Which transparency is a good starting point. Airlines need to be open about what happened,
Uh-huh.
what they're doing to investigate,
Right.
and what steps they're taking to prevent it from happening again.
Okay, so it's about communication.
Yeah, but it's more than just words.
Right.
Like, they need to show a real commitment to safety.
Not just saying it, but doing it.
Exactly, through their actions.
What kind of actions could really make a difference for passengers?
Well, put yourself in a passenger's shoes.
Okay.
What would make you feel safer getting on a plane,
Yeah.
knowing that the airline has a strict maintenance program
Uh-huh.
with well-trained mechanics
Right.
who aren't being pressured to cut corners,
Okay. Yeah.
or seeing the pilots are getting enough rest,
Yeah.
not overworked.
So tangible things that demonstrate their commitment.
Exactly. Actions speak louder than words.
And it's not just what happens behind the scenes either, right?
No, it's also the in-flight experience.
Okay.
How the flight attendants interact with passengers,
Uh-huh.
how they handle questions or concerns, even the overall tone of the crew.
So creating an environment where passengers feel taken care of.
Yeah, like they're in capable hands.
Yeah, like a psychological safety net,
Exactly.
where even if something goes wrong,
Right.
you feel confident that they can handle it.
That confidence takes time to build.
Yeah.
It's earned through consistent actions.
This crash also brings up the role of technology in aviation safety.
Oh.
We're seeing so many advancements.
Yeah. New navigation systems.
Right.
Collision avoidance. AI even.
Do you think these things can help prevent tragedies like this?
Technology has a role to play, for
Yep.
sure.
Oh.
But it's not a cure-all.
Right.
Even the best technology is only as good as the people using it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And there will always be things you can't predict.
Unforeseen circumstances.
Right.
So it's not about replacing human pilots
Right.
with robots or something.
It's about using technology to help them
Okay.
to make better decisions.
A partnership
Exactly.
between humans and technology.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll see more of that
I think it's inevitable.
as technology gets better?
Right. We'll see more automation, more complex systems, more AI.
The key is finding that balance,
Yeah.
keeping humans in control,
Right.
but using technology to make things safer.
And more efficient.
That's a tough balance.
It is.
But it's an interesting time to be following these developments.
It really is.
There's so much innovation happening.
Absolutely.
And while this tragedy reminds us of the risks,
Yeah.
it's also a chance to learn and grow.
And to push the boundaries of safety even further.
I want to go back to something you said earlier
Okay.
about the human cost of this crash.
Yeah.
What can we as individuals do to honor those who are lost?
I think the most important thing is to remember them.
Yeah.
To remember that these aren't just statistics.
Right.
These were real people.
Every time we get on a plane,
Exactly.
we should remember those who didn't make it home.
And ask questions.
Stay informed.
Hold the airlines and authorities accountable.
And support the people working to make flying safer.
Yes, the researchers, the engineers, the pilots.
They're the ones preventing future tragedies.
Absolutely. Every improvement, every step forward is a testament to their work.